What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. I was doing my dad slash husband thing over the weekend. You know that thing where you try to be as small and as invisible as possible so the wife doesn't ask you to do anything. And apparently I failed because my wife came into the room and she said, "Pumpkin?" She doesn't call me Pumpkin, she calls me Cow, but that's a totally different story. She said, "Cow, I need some boots." Here I'm thinking, well, there goes a couple $100. So what she was talking about, is boot table toppers for a function. A function.
Like to party. We like to party.
Hemingway, she wanted to know if I could do them on the laser, and I said, of course, dear. And I headed out into the shop. Well, actually, I headed up to the computer first, and that's where I want to start. I want to take you guys through the process of designing a file kind of from scratch. I say it's not really from scratch, but kind of from scratch in Lightburn to execute on your laser. So, Pumpkin, let's jump over to the computer, shall we? I'm gonna use a website called designbundles.net. It's not a sponsor or anything. I like the way they do their membership. You don't pay by the month, you pay by the design. If you don't want to go to Design Bundles, you could always come in here and type cowboy boot SVG and go check your images. Look for something free and go from there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into Design Bundles. I'm going to go cowboy boot. And then the design I chose is this one right here. As you can see, already purchased. And we're going to use this design right here. So I've already downloaded this. So I'm just going to import the design that comes with the file into Lightburn. And this is the PNG that imports into Lightburn. I'm gonna make this a little bigger so we can see it. And the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select everything, and I'm gonna right click and I'm gonna hit trace image. Check it, look at that, that looks good. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab the original image and get rid of it. Okay, so now we have trace designs. We're gonna use a design on the left, so I'm gonna get rid of the one on the right. I probably should have done it this way. Now let's work on the inside of the boot design first, because I want this to be a little different. So I want this right here to be a solid. So I'm gonna make that blue, and I'm gonna make sure that this is set to fill. So we know that that's gonna engrave that. We're gonna engrave these guys too. Okay, and then we wanna grab the inside and the outside. So I'm shift clicking all these loop-de-loos. Loop-de-loos? Is that what you call them? And make sure to get these two guys too. And you'll see why in a second. Because we're going to take those to layer 1 and make those fill as well. So that's all going to engrave around there. Now, the one thing is I don't want this outline. So I'm going to get rid of it. I'm not going to mess with that anymore because the stars are going to cut out. This is going to be our outline, and this is going to be the interior. I'm also going to get rid of this because we don't need that. We're not making earrings. So now I'm going to take this guy. I want to group it, and then I'm going to shift click the boot, and then we'll hit the center and put that in the center of there. Okay, so this is our boot. That's our boot. That's our table topper right there. But I wanted to make this three-dimensional to have two sides to it. So, get out of here real quick. Bring this guy up here. And we're just going to group this whole thing. So when I get down, and I've even labeled this, you can see cuts and fills. So I want the blue to engrave. I want the reds to cut. So we're going to cut the stars actually out. And then we want to make another side to this, right? So I'm going to grab this guy. So first I want to Command C and then V and make another one. But don't make the mistake I did. I will show you in a second. What I did is I flipped this twice. And so it ended up, if you flip something twice, it ends up being the same orientation as the first one. And if you do that, then the design will be on the inside of both sides of the boot. All we want to do is come up to this guy and flip it this way. Now we can ensure that those are going to be the direction you want them. And then what I ended up doing, since I had to make multiple of these, is I took a command copied, and I would take this guy and I would just rotate it up so we'd have multiple at the same time. But for this demonstration, we're just going to do those guys. And originally my wife had said, Pumpkin, can you make those 8 inches tall, which is about 200 millimeters tall? So those are some big booties, right?
A big old booty. I was doing my duty.
And then my thought was to make them about 3 inches apart. I just came in, I took the rectangle tool, I made a rectangle that was about 4 inches wide. Make sure to turn this into a cut line. And then I'm gonna zoom in on here. You know, the material I'm working with is 3 millimeters thick. I'm sorry if I'm jumping back between inches and millimeters. The machine downstairs is set up 2 inches. So if I bounce back and forth, I apologize. But what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna make a little rectangle here. I'm gonna make sure that that rectangle is 3 millimeters wide. Make this a little shorter. And then I'm gonna come up here and I'm gonna put this guy in here, okay? And I don't know the best way to do this. This is what I always do. I always make a square. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring a square in here and I'm gonna use that as my measure. And then I'm gonna grab my doohickey here and I'm gonna use that as kind of a rough where that is going to be in the design. And then I'm gonna grab this, I'm gonna take it over here, and then I'm gonna grab this. I'm gonna Control CV, copy and paste it. I'm gonna bring this guy over here, and then I'm gonna get rid of this guy. I'm sure there's another way to do that. I just don't know what it is. I'm sure Rich will let me know in the comments. I grab this guy and this guy, and then I'm gonna come over here to my subtract tool and subtract that out. Come over here, grab those two and subtract that out. And then I'm going to take this guy and I'm gonna copy and paste one more time. And what I want is I just want 3 of these, and these are just gonna be the little divider guys that hold the 2 pieces apart. And then let's head down to the shop, because working with our hands is therapeutic, baby. Okay, so the final project initially looked like this. So pretty cool, right? Now, this is where I messed up. See how this has the design on it? And if you look inside, that has the design on it, and there's no design on the back. That was where I double flipped it. But once I had this design finished, I showed it to my wife and she said,
Pumpkin, can you make it 6 inches tall instead of 8?
to which I said, of course, darling. And I can also make them in walnut. And then she said,
Great, can you make 10 more?
of course, dear. I cranked them out, and I'm realizing that I just grabbed 2 of the same again, but this is how these go together. Actually, let me go grab one that's not. Okay, so if you didn't catch the first part, I just went back into the design and I shrank it from 8 to 6 inches. I didn't think it was really necessary to show you guys that step, but just so you get an idea how these go together, I have this little guy here, and you're just gonna kind of find a place on the heel, put it on both sides, do one on the toes, like so. See that? And then I do one on top just because I don't want them to fall over and be weird. I think they'd be fine with just the 2 on the bottom, but, and there you go. A little homemade table topper on the laser, baby. Hoo-hoo! Until next time, stay groovy. Whoop!